Hi there, Randy Green here. It is April 17th, 2022, and the process in this video will be centered around what is important to give of information at this point in time. And as always, those of us who are choosing to give updates on YouTube regarding the otherworldly sciences and what's going on the other levels of our reality, we are working within our specializations as well as within what we see to be our purpose and function of bringing forth information. And for those of you who've been following me for years, you will say, well, that sounds different, Randy. What's going on? And what is going on is that I have completed the fourth cycle work that is all about the heart field, as well as the understanding of the chiasm, the work on timelines, the clearing processes that goes with the fourth cycle biofield, as well as the energy system that's connected to that, and the different sciences and trepidations that go to that one following the original program that was called The Cross. That was part of the reasons why the reseeding happened in what we call Mesopotamia, as well as Egypt after the fall of Atlantis, where the fifth cycle technically began but collapsed and did not come to its completion. In the HAL perception logs, as well as in the new reality updates, which you find on my website, the HAL Academy website, I've given all the background information of all of the things that you can think of that has been going on in our reality field the last 5 years, give or take. So if you want the sum up and the indications and the explanations and the deep understanding of what I'm here putting forth on YouTube, that is where you go to get that information. You pay for these videos. There are the whole perception logs themselves are 42 videos explaining from the beginning and into where we are now and the end cycle and what that technically means, giving an update of the information I began with in my book material, the 6 books I have made so far, updating all of these so that what you have got there is now updated in the whole perception log. So they kind of go hand in hand. And then in the new reality updates, I've been giving what we could say the whole transition from the fourth cycle and into the fifth cycle level of reality that has now been activated inside our reality. And this is where many of us are beginning to work with the different levels of the fifth dimension, if you want to put it that way. I call it the fifth cycle because technically the fifth dimension is an artificial reality connected to the old world order program, and therefore it's not the fifth dimension, but it is the original fifth cycle that goes with what we could call the levels that we should have achieved in the Atlantean projects, but we didn't. And at the same time, the last time I probably spoke, there was this whole kind of issue with the parallel universal matrix and the races that were there. And they chose, as I explain in both the whole perception logs, but as also in the new reality updates, they chose to travel back in time and complete their fourth cycle before the fall of Atlantis, which has allowed them to literally on the fourth cycle level pull out. And that goes from the fourth dimension into the 10th dimension, which follows the different, what we call original races that were part of both, you can call it from Stargate 10 up to Stargate, or down to Stargate 4, going from Egypt all the way up to the Draco system, involving as well the Mesopotamian factions that were part of the reseeding after the fall of Atlantis. So all of that is part of the old world order. And many of these races have now literally pulled out, and whatever is left in humans that are still struggling with this are part of their energy system. It's part of the fourth cycle energy system that's connected to the heart field. And that goes with ancient timelines. It goes with artificial realities that are part of what remains of the artificial fourth dimension that was created for the reseeding after the fall of Atlantis. And the groups that were reseeded there under the different Syrian Pleiadian projects that went along with that. And I have in the whole transition science classes given my memories and the sciences behind what we need to do, those of us who were part of the true humans that got reseeded there as well, and what we need to do to upgrade our energy system to be able to function in what we call a 6-dimensional or 6-layered advanced energy system that allows us to create what is called the hypergates, from where we can complete our cycle inside this reality, whether we choose to do it in the 4th cycle or the 5th cycle. And some of us, they're a little bit ambitious trying to get to the 6th cycle and at least some of the levels of information that were supposed to be developed into our energy system via the 6th cycle, or the 612 pillar work, as I called it. So as always, we are having different races that remains. We have around 20% of the original Old World Order program races, but these are in the lower end of the scale. There are reptilians, but they are of the group that's called scavengers. They are hybrid races. They are not pure reptilian. So they might look reptilian, but they are more lizard in structure. So they are not from the Draco system, just to kind of know that they are from the Orion system. Betelgeuse is the name of the star that they technically originate from. So that's a whole other group, even though many of you do not know the difference between a true Draco and one of these scavenger hybrid reptilians, because you're not reading their genetic signature. But they are, of course, still in control of some of the templates, and they have got contracts on quite a lot of groups of people inside our reality that still belongs to the 4th cycle, and by that are still linked up to the artificial 4th dimension and the different prohibiting technologies, as well as all types of technologically enhanced genetics, as well as energetic parasites and what we call artificial timelines. So therefore, there are still a lot of people that are seeing these levels of reality and struggling with that. And as they move along and learn how to remove this, they will see that the majority of what they actually think is actively out there is technically bleed-throughs from these artificial timelines, and enhanced via the technologically enhanced genetics that have created energetic parasites that are releasing different forms of enzymes, from where emotional and electrochemical processes that affect the neurons in the brain as well as the perception field will generate feelings and sensations and experiences as if they were still actively part of these timelines, which is part of the artificial 4th dimension clone technology. But that is what you need to figure out how to deal with. And how to release this and how to get rid of this is part of the advanced clearing work videos I have made as well. So the reason why I've been very silent out here is because I've literally summed up the historical background in the whole perception logs, leading to the current state of the end cycle dynamics and what it means to enter into new grand cycle, as well as the new reality updates and the different groups that were here as far as we know. And there is always these changing features of who is here, who is coming, and who is going. Part of the 4th cycle, which will continue to be that way. So in a way, remaining or having the focus point there, the perception level understanding of that reality, section of reality, will of course constantly be this, the things that we, those of us who've been part of the 4th cycle, have been working extensively with the last 4 years and clearing that one out so that we could move into the 5th cycle. And that's where I have my point of origin and point of perception right now is in the 5th cycle. And I want to continue from that level. I'm just summing up here so you kind of get up to speed. So the whole difference between the 4th cycle and whatever's going on there and all the layers that we have been working with in the stellar activation cycle that technically should lead everybody into the 5th cycle in whatever version that it's supposed to be. And these are the versions that we are now down to, is what we technically call the remaining parts of the artificial 5th dimension that were part of the reseeding after the fall of Atlantis, but were hijacked and were taken over by what we call some of the falling angelic races, as well as some of the Dark Avatar Collective. So that one is not really something I want to say, well, that's the 5th dimension. So therefore, I'm here saying, okay, who's going to try and do the 5th cycle? And the 5th cycle is where humanity should be at this point in time, which we aren't due to the hijackers and what happened in the 4th cycle. And majority of the humans are stuck in different versions of the fourth cycle and different versions of the prohibiting technologies. And that is going to be a large problem in the future. But for now, humanity will do their natural inclinations of whatever that means, and they will follow whatever is left of the fourth cycle old world order technology and programs, which we call reality out there, and they will live within that, and that's going to be called the old sector of our reality, where the majority of humanity are going to continue the rest of their lives living as they have been accustomed to, more or less. Of course, the reality will change around them, but it will change within the dynamics of what we call relative reality. And I explain that in depth in the basic concepts of my class material in the whole completed class 1 and 2. But in essence, the relative reality is connected to, of course, different timelines, and these timelines are defined by your type of genetics and your configuration, as well as your energy development and knowledge development, so to speak, so that your energy system will define what type of reality you're technically perceiving. And as you move into the fifth cycle, you will become more specialized in what you are perceiving, and you will understand that the whole teamwork, the group work, and the way we're to work together in team, as we learn in the fourth cycle, will then go into specialization, where, of course, we can team up if we see it necessary, as scientists do, but it will be within our own specialization. So we will not work as teams within the same context, so to speak, but we will work as specialists, creating a specific type of future reality pattern from where specific sciences and specific levels of reality can unfold. And that's the job for us that are here doing the end cycle dynamics, at the same time clearing out whatever is no longer functional and ensuring that whatever we are here creating will be the green card for the turnaround that will lead us back into the middle domain or density 2. So our reality is reset into density 1, which is the outer domains, and that's where you turn around. That's where you discard everything that you no longer have use of, even though it, for a time being, due to the old version of reality and the timelines that were instigated here as part of the project after the fall of Atlantis with the artificial fourth dimension, have had these kind of energies that were connected to density 2, allowing these different races, including the hijackers, to have functional energy systems inside our reality. But that is collapsing as well. So we are now beginning to get to that point in the future where the human energy system, for those who have actively activated their fourth cycle energy system, they will have that ability, but they will quickly move into the fifth cycle where they are utilizing the fourth cycle energy system in a different manner, using it as a vibrational field from where specific energies can be amplified and drummed up, and specific timelines can be accessed to derive specific type of information from where specific type of sciences can be created. Not done by technology, but done by consciousness perception, which means the fifth cycle is all about the development of the brain, as you know I've been talking about for a long time. So that's the brain field that those of us who are beginning that level are accessing. And it went wrong in the time of Atlantis because the brain field is technically linked up to the LPR3 fallen grids that were part of and have been part of the Dark Avatar Collective. They still are. But what is happening now on our planet is that what remains of the enhanced humans that are from what's called parallel Earth, and parallel Earth is not part of the parallel universal matrix. But we still have a fifth cycle version of the parallel universal matrix, but they have upgraded because they travel back in time and completed their fourth cycle before the fall of Atlantis. So their new fifth cycle inside this reality, where they will do the turnaround and finalize all their projects here, will then be upgraded to a complete new level. At the same time, we have parallel Earth, and parallel Earth, as we know from the Colontics, are the antimatter version of our positive matter type of reality. Not that we're going to annihilate each other, but we are going to do a triple dimensional blend, to put it that way. We could call it a fifth cycle blend from the fifth cycle of the parallel universal matrix and the fifth cycle of the parallel Earth that are 9 years into the future at this point in time, and our reality field as it has reset to its original outer domain structure. And they will be in their outer domain structure as well, but the lowest point will here be what we perceive as the fifth dimension, but not the fifth dimension of the old world order reality program and the artificial constructions that were made there, but a new type of fifth dimension that will arise from the triple blend that is going to happen from parallel Earth, parallel universal matrix fifth cycle, which is not an Earth, that is a reality field that is very dissimilar to anything we know of, because as I said, they travel back in time, so they have upgraded their parallel universal matrix into something completely different, because they were capable of doing this whole upgrading in the fourth cycle, completing that to its to what they needed, to the extent they needed as the humanoids they are. And with that, dodged the bullet of the fall of the fifth cycle, which has been a problem for them because that one linked them up to the Dark Avatar Collective. But by traveling back in time, they have avoided that one and thereby changed the entire configuration of the parallel universal matrix. So it no longer looks as anything that we know of. And this is some of the new things we will discover as they do their blend into our system, alongside with the blend that is going to happen from the parallel Earth. And that is where matter and antimatter, that is the original Earth configuration of the outer domain. Parallel Earth and our Earth were part of the original Trinity system that our Earth consisted of. There was a third planet, but that one is the one that fell into the Dark Avatar Collective. So that will fall into the abyss and go into evaporation. But we will still have the two Earths that are our Earth and parallel Earth, and they will merge in a point soon in the future, whenever that's going to be. All depends on what type of humans that they are currently trying to re-engineer to become part of what we call a joint energy field, from where the replication, they have created replicates of some of us that are part of that experimentation. And that replicate is learning stuff that will then be part of the blend into the physical form of this type of body that is being upgraded as well using alien technology. So this is a very, very large project that is going on right now. At the same time, there are also what we call cross blending already now timelines from our Earth with the timelines of parallel Earth, so that we will not do the antimatter annihilation as we know of from sciences, but are actually going to be a blend where there will be create a synergy, so to speak, where you have the positive and the negative, and they will blend together and create synergy. That is the next highest level, where we will then, the two Earths that were there will then blend together, become one. The races that were there and the versions of us of there and here and what have you will become one inside this reality. And the beginning point of that is that those of us who are part of that experiment, which you can figure out I am, we are getting our biofields recalibrated into a later point in time, so to speak. I'm born in 1968, but my biofield has been reconfigured into 1977, which aligns with a different type of bioprojects that were going on our planet at the time, which allows some of the both the enhanced human groups of the military projects that are collaborating with parallel Earth, as well as the parallel Earth civilizations that are of human origins like we are. They are technically not different versions of us, but they are humans 9 year into the future. Sorry about that. But they have always been in contact with alien races knowingly. So that's the difference. If you want to ask what's the difference between our planet and that planet, well, technically the hijacking, which led to a large infusion of avian, insectoid, lower reptoid races into our Earth, whereas parallel Earth were mainly still focused on the connection points to the Sirius system, the mammal reptoid races, as well as the Pleiadian races and the Burian races and other groupings that have collaborated with them knowingly, because they are also of human origin. So that's the difference. And many of what we can kind of say when we talk about the different military projects, they have had their alternate reality basis in parallel Earth. So this is where you could say the breakaway civilizations will then return. These are the returnees. And as we saw it, there was this whole kind of the returnees that were part of the parallel universal matrix. They will also return, but in now a different capacity. And they will primarily target the hybrid humans because they have now a genetic structure that is so dissimilar from ours that they cannot integrate themselves into this type of human form that we have, but parallel Earth can. So this is a little bit of an update of some of the things that are going on. So we are having a massive blend that is going on now that is going to create synergy. And what that synergy will lead to, that is the good question. And at the same time, we still have a large portion of what we could call races that are interested in maintaining the old Earth programs, which is the reality you know of. And they will preside over the fourth cycle. So humans that are stuck in the fourth cycle will not discover any of these changes around them whatsoever. But those of us who have completed the fourth cycle and those that have been re-engineered to be participating in that blend program that were beginning with the event program to say it as it is, and the replication, that was some of the things that NOAA was also part of and the military projects have been part of. And this has nothing to do with New Earth, because New Earth is in my version and my understanding of things part of the parallel universal matrix and the version that they tried to create before they decided to go back in time. So technically, if you ask me, is the New Earth program going to unfold? And I will say there will be pieces of it out there. It will still be mentioned and utilized and worked with as an idea. But from where I'm seeing, the false light races have taken over that agenda completely. And the fifth dimension that were tied to the New Earth program has been completely taken over by the false light races. But if you ask of the parallel universal matrix and what they are going to do, they are not going to do a new Earth because they are just going in, doing what they need to do, and then eventually pull out the hybrid humans and do a template transfer as well as an energy system transfer into the different versions that they are creating the parallel universal matrix, and by that finalizing the hybrid programs, which means 50 years into the future. So there will no longer be any hybrids of the kind that we know of in the early versions of the another group of the military projects, because there are many different sectors and sections within the military projects, all depending on which program we have been part of. So this is again that understanding that we need to discern between the different projects and where are they in terms of what have they done to follow with the resetting that has happened in the beginning of this year. That's what I'm talking about, both in the whole perception log, but also in the new reality update videos, where I've now, I think there's some 60 videos or something like that, where I literally just gave as the information ticked in and then the changes and what happened and what they decided to do, because it's all a matter of trying to genetically modify the genetic structure of humans within both the genotype but also the phenotype to see if it is possible to upgrade the human genome, as well as creating new neural networks using new types of what we call hyperbolic enzymic upgrade systems that are altering the RNA, but at the same time also creating new types of neuropeptides that allows the human frequencies in the brain to be able to process what we call the hyper gamma radiation level that has been inserted into the ionosphere. The next level would be the Schumann resonance that is connected to the heart field, and that is connected to all of the electrochemical processes as well as the peripheral nervous system of humans. And that is why they are now merging the different timelines in our reality field in the original outer domain settings, so that there will still be a perception level that goes with the original Earth program, as you know of it. That is kind of not the original Earth program, but the type of program that we are seeing as our reality right now, and the matrix of change that is being implemented there that will lead to new sciences, new types of medicine, new types of political structures, new types of the whole world setting is being changed with the events that are happening now, both still within the false light agenda that is still active actively trying to get as much as they can for their fifth dimension, and whatever remains of the artificial fourth dimension and the old world order race is still there trying to get as much as they can to maintain their different type of projects that will sustain their existence and keep them going for a longer period of time until they have solved some of their issues with the regressed genetics as well as with the inverted genetics, which is what the false light races are working to try and undo. And they have been, in a way, kind of have a positive feedback effect from both the parallel universal matrix and what they did, as well as some of the work that some of us have been doing to clearing out timelines, and in that way have cleared out what we could call a percentage of inverted genetics as well as regressed genetics, and in that manner has left the timelines a little bit more functional, so that when we're doing this blend that is happening now allows for what we could call infusions to the very, very extremely depleted original outer domain network, which I call the LPF1 network, that were completely destroyed in the timeline event, and trying to get the timelines back together to sustain what we could call the fifth cycle process on our planet for as long as possible. Although that those of us who are going into the fifth cycle, even though we'll be part of this world, we'll still have this physical form, we will undergo so dramatic changes in everything that we are, that we will literally begin to see things in our reality that most people are not seeing, as especially if they are a part of the old world configuration, and by that are not capable of perceiving other than what they have been programmed to perceive. So this is going to be part of that relative reality division that is happening around humanity and the different humanities around our planet. There will be, this is not going to happen for all. There is this, we could say, not that it has anything to do with race, it has nothing to do with skin color, it has nothing to do with your gender, it has nothing to do with these artificial outer structures, but it has all to do with the original template and energy system level. So it depends on, there will be people around the globe that are technically in an area that is still doing the fourth cycle or old world order type of structures, but they will begin their fifth cycle process. But they will have difficulties in doing so, and eventually these people will travel north to find areas where they can do what they need to do, and that will be beginning of the migration, which of course we're already seeing the first attempts of migration, but they will, of course, as we know, as the climate changes gets more intense, and there will be larger areas of less sustainability for specific groups of people, put it that way, very, very obscure, but without saying anything that will put people into a frenzy and predicting horrible futures and what have you, because the whole goal of this is that the ones that are able to work scientifically with new types of innovation and new types of sciences, they will begin to do the work to find solutions for these kind of things. And we could put it in a nicer context that if they are part of a country that does have universities, but they don't have the sciences yet implemented because they're part of the old world order paradigm, these people, these young people, will naturally seek north. They will seek to go to another country. They will seek other university programs where they can do their new sciences and become part of the science teams that they need to become part of, so they can create what they need to create. And we will see this. Scientists will get younger and younger, and they will get smarter and smarter, and they are part of these groups that have been seeded in as the forerunners for this, and then they will try the blend with the rest of us that are perhaps not that young but are having other capacities that are also needed, because it's not just about having these augmented humans that are capable of doing what we call brain processing, almost getting ready to the quantum level, but they are with the sciences that they are going to work with. But we also need groups that are part of what we call the older versions of templates, but they need to come and play with the original fifth cycle dynamics and understandings, and that is also part of the blend that is is happening now, trying to activate as many levels of the pattern of the past, present, and future, so that we will have that outcome that is necessary to actively begin to change the timelines. Not that we can salvage this planet as it is. It will go as it needs to go alongside with the rest of the third cycle, of which we are embedded into. But the attempt is to move as much as possible into the fourth cycle, which will later become part of the Mars colonies. And then there will be what we could call either as space stations or a part of what will be brought into our reality as the parallel Earth will blend with ours. There will be what we could call a new version of some sort of reality field from where these fifth cycle humans will continue their existence, but it will not be in a planet or on a planet like this one. It will not be on our Earth, and it will not be a new Earth, because Earth is technically, the word itself is connected to a planet, and we are here talking about resuming to our original reality field settings where you are not living on a planet, but you're technically living on what we call an accretion disk, similar as a galaxy, but with changeable energies that are not visible in the way that we are accustomed to. And this is part of the fifth cycle turnaround when we go into the middle domain or density 2. The last question about the sun and what the sun has become, it is a density 1 sun, so it has also begun its end cycle sequences. And that is what it means to be in the outer domain. So eventually, when we are going through the understanding of the core domain, the inner domain, the middle domain, the outer domain configuration of reality fields, as well as galaxies, as well as universal structures, the whole point is that you have this from the core to the inner to the middle to the outer. In the outer, you reconfigure everything, discard everything that is no longer of any use, delete all timelines, delete everything that you have developed so far that is of no use, discard it into the abyss, which we technically are part of. That's our universe. That's why it's doing what it's doing. And then you turn around and go back into the middle domain, where you then take with you that new configuration from where you use the 6-layered energy system to upgrade your template level, from which you then be able to go into the inner domain, and from there you will access the stargates out to the core domain, or the hypergates going as original genetics. But you can also go from the hypergates from the outer domain into the middle domain, and that's also part of the energy system that we are creating. So again, we are beginning to reconfigure ourselves into the understanding of what it actively means to be either a true human or a true humanoid, so to speak, having advanced technologies at our disposal, but at the same time also understanding what it truly means to be an advanced being, an advanced human, or an advanced entity. You decide yourself, living in reality fields of different types of energies that vibrates on a different scale of energy, that's a density, and has different features and holographic code systems from where we can develop different types of consciousness. And that is where we need to go. And that's what the specialization is all about. We embark on the different innovative creational projects so that we can unfold both the energies to transform them following the original cycles of evolution, but at the same time also developing our consciousness structure into new levels of knowledge, which is determining what kind of features that we can influence the reality with, as well as what we will perceive of relative reality. Technically, what we develop in our energy system and what we work with will define the reality that we see and are part of. And that is what a reality field is supposed to do. And that is what the fifth cycle is teaching us in the outer domain, so that technically in the outer domain, we could either turn around in our own reality field or jump to another reality field using the stellar gates or the stargates, which we now know in the old version of it has been taken over and destroyed, and none of them are working. But with Parallel Earth coming in, they have still, many of their stargates are still functional. So that's the whole point of the blend that is going to happen, is that we will get these stargates abilities back. But the lowest point again will be in what we see as the sixth dimension, even though we don't have a sixth dimension, but it will be the highest level of the fifth cycle dynamics. That to avoid point one, the Dark Avatar Collective, so they can't get access to it. Point two, the regressed races that cannot go further than into the artificial fourth dimension. The block stoppers to put them there. And that's why the parallel universal matrix races chose to go back in time and do their fourth cycle completion there, and then resume here doing the fifth cycle here and there with the new level that they have, so they could pull out what was left of what we call the hybrid projects in the fifth cycle and do that quite quickly, which in the end will leave us with a dual configuration that there will go between parallel Earth and our Earth dynamics and reality fields that will then be blended. But then there will come this synergetic effect that will lift us up into what we call the beginning of the sixth cycle. And that is technically what we should understand, not the sixth dimension, but the sixth cycle as the lowest point of origin, because the elevation of the universal structures around us are now in their sixth cycle, and that's their end phase, doing the sixth cycle there. In our system, the end game or the end phase was in the fifth cycle. So each system has its own configuration. So that means that when we talk about the sixth cycle races that are doing their final outer domain that is in the sixth cycle, which is difficult to understand, then they technically have a domain structure that is composed of 6 rings and 6 different layers, where we have what we now see as the core and the inner and the middle and the outer, which is a 4-ring configuration. And that's why it's in the fifth cycle, because that's where we jump ship, that's where we shift timelines, and that's where we go through the gate system to other reality fields. So with that little comprised update, that is why I've been silent so long, because I just wanted to put in there the whole background and all the features and details and whatever you need to know of this massive change that is happening in our reality right now, is part of the whole perception logs 1 to 6, as well as in the new reality updates. And that sums up to 100 some videos in total, where you will get the complete explanation of everything that's been happening, so that you really get up to speed with that level of information. And in that, no longer technically should have any questions to the how and the why and what's going on. But here we can just resume the work and continue in the fifth cycle, where I ended the last video with that sum up and say we are now, or I am at least, entering into the fifth cycle and beginning that work, so that our outer domain can complete what it was set to do. And with that, whatever can no longer be used will then be discarded, but it will be discarded at what we call a peak, and what we should have completed when we began this journey in this system, no matter the ups and downs and whatever has been going on here. So in that, of course, there will be another 100 years for the fourth cycle, but those of us who are the forerunners of the fifth cycle, that will be the next civilization that will be born on our planet. There is right now an estimate of 3 generations, another 300 years that will continue the work here on this planetary structure. But then we should have gotten to that point in time where humanity truly can shift out, including, or not including, but via the technologies and the new levels of sciences that the blend with the parallel Earth will provide to us. Now, for those of you who think this is Ascension, it has nothing to do with Ascension. It is a natural dynamic that happens when a reality field and a universal structure has reached its end potentials. So that's where everything blends up and it sums up and it creates synergy, so it can transform itself and lift itself into the next elevation level, so it can follow the universal cycles, the grand cycles, and the new grand cycle that is is coming in, and everything else that cannot follow with these dynamics will either go into the long sleep, which is called pralaya, or will go into the crystallization and evaporation processes that are part of the abyss function, as we're seeing it in our universe, where stars are collapsing and galaxies are collapsing and everything is collapsing and turning into dust. And that is what the abyss, our universe, is all about. And our solar system is on the outskirts. It is in the outer domain. The whole domain feature goes with the galaxy that we are part of. And we are in one of the, it used to be called the Sagittarius arm, but now it's called the Orion arm for reasons and purposes that should be obvious. All considered that with the collapse of two other galaxies on the August 17th, I think it was in 2017, where these two old galaxies collapsed, and with that created a ripple effect throughout our universal structures, which altered our galactic core and made it, because they were connected to versions of our galactic core, and in that put our, literally blasted our galactic core into what we call a dark configuration. So with that, of course, changed into the Orion arm. But this is what we are here. That's also when that happens, when a galaxy, a reality field, goes into what we call the dark configuration, then it has begun its end cycle. That is the button that is being pushed, and it says, now it begins, now the end cycle begins, because now the dark energies from the abyss has begun to creep in and take over the viable energies. That means that there are no longer enough momentum to keep up a viability, and therefore that reality field has reached its completion, and that is also why it's called a completion cycle. And with that, there are specific dynamics that comes in play, and I talk about this in the whole perception log 6. So with all of that said, summing up here a little bit of an Easter update. That is kind of all of what I wanted to say here. And of course, I am not blasting out a lot of information here on YouTube and everywhere as I used to, because I decided to kind of to put it into the whole perception logs, of which there will be no more than the first 6 ones I've made, as well as the new reality updates. So from here on, I want to focus more on some of the sciences that needs to be discussed and shared. For those of us who are entering into the 5th cycle and the new specializations that we are embarking on. And that's where the whole project Otherworldly Science Google site that is linked to this channel will come up with articles and what is important to discuss there that links up and are part of the sciences that we technically should have in our reality field, but has been held from us, as we know. So therefore, the blend that was supposed to begin to happen in the 50s never came about, because different factions within our reality field of the old world order kind within the military projects were not interested in letting the general population have that information. So as always, it will only be the few that will know what's going to happen, but these few still need some kind of forum, still need some kind of information that is dissimilar to all of the other types of information that is rightfully and wellfully and very well done put out there from other people. So we are all piecing together that new pattern of what it means to be part of this reality for those of us who are choosing to continue our consciousness development and our conscious evolutionary journey into becoming much more than just what commonaries are doing out there without patronizing the majority of humans on our planet. They are living the lives that they have been engineered to live, and it is like that. But this can be broken. But the work that it takes, as I outline in the whole transition science classes, as well as in the advanced energy work classes, is complex and takes an enormous amount of effort and time. And the possibility of the majority of humans on our planet doing that is not very likely. But there will be people that will do it. And these are the ones that I am, as always, are talking to, the ones that are effectively and actively are trying to regain their original capacities, remember who and what they truly were, and try to the best of their abilities to complete the cycles that we all began a long time ago, so that at least a portion of humanity will continue into futures, or belief system and continue in the original universal structure, or become part of the parallel universal matrix, or become part of what we call the humanoid wells under the solar reaches, because that is an option that is also possible and will probably come and play at a later point. Once the parallel universal matrix has pulled out, then we need a third system to be part of our trinity, aside from our doing the synergy. But as we unfold into a new configuration, it will then blast out into not a trinity system, but technically a quadrant system with 4 different planetary structures. But let us see how that one will unfold, and whatever that will mean, and whatever that will have of consequences in terms of sciences and our understanding of doing the progression work and the elevation work of our energy system. So with that piece of update and information, I will hereby end this video. And until next time, take care, do your best. That's all we can do, one day at a time, one foot in front of another. And with that one, until next time.